fishing and hunting and whatever they do. Nobody wants to do anything to destroy our environment. So that's like the number one big misconception. But when you tell somebody, okay, one of the examples was when I was at Western Fiber in Wisconsin. They have a big paper mill plant, and 50% of the expenses for their operation is energy. So that was the connection why we went. And bringing manufacturing back to the United States is going to require a lot of energy. And we want to bring manufacturing back here. We want to bring jobs back here. So one of the examples that he gave me was 15 years ago, there was an Air Quality Act bill that passed that required them to put in a new air filtration, you call it like a stack, right? Mm-hmm. And it cost them $10 million.
Wow.
And they didn't have a choice. They had to do it or they had to shut down, right?
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. Today we're on the road in Arizona and bumped into my colleague, Mary Beth Cirucci, who has been traveling the nation as part of our Road to Prosperity tour, talking about our need to unleash energy abundance all across the country. And she's been to all these different states. I think it's 11 states in 11 weeks, she told me. And we want to hear her story and what she's learned and the good work that the folks running this tour are doing. So, Mary Beth, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, I can't believe I have to go to Arizona to bump into you.
I know. And last time I saw you in Montana at the Energy Summit.
Yeah.
So it's good to see you here in Arizona.
Yeah. So the Road to Prosperity tour, I mean, tell us what it's consisted of, since I think September, right, when we launched it?
Yeah, September 8th was our first event. And the idea behind the tour was to showcase American ingenuity in our energy production and to draw attention to, what good looks like and also to highlight what bad looks like for them as far as roadblocks and obstacles that they face to producing energy for America. And a lot of that, sadly, is on government regulations. So we wanted to set up this tour around the country and showcase those good sites and the bad and just draw attention to the fact that a lot of people don't realize that we have a rising need for energy. In fact, electricity for 10 years was stagnant, and now the electricity demand is going up, and we have to meet that demand. And that demand is caused a lot by artificial intelligence, AI, a lot of things. It's also caused by us taking off reliable forms of energy from the power grid. So we're kind of in a little sense of urgency, and I don't know that Congress and the American public realize that there is a little bit of a sense of urgency. So we want to bring all those things, to the forefront and have some engaging discussion and some policy solutions to correct it.
On the podcast, we've had a number of guests, some of whom you've actually recommended to us, who've been fascinating, great guests, who are work in the energy sector, real experts in the energy sector, and they've talked to us about the growing need and the urgency to grow our domestic energy capabilities, and we just need more energy. And I know one of Chris Koopman over at the Abundance Institute is fond of saying, look, if you like to have pictures of your kids and grandkids stored up in the cloud, it takes energy to run those server farms. Or, AI gets scapegoated a lot, and it for good reason. I mean, it's going to take a lot. Yep. But we just increasingly use more and more energy because we're so digitally based, and it's just the consequence of what we're doing. I hadn't realized that our need had kind of stagnated for a while, and now it's kind of going up, so that makes a lot of sense. But I think it's a key message that people need to realize, policymakers and certainly the American public, because I don't know that everybody's really connected to that.
No, I don't think they are at all. And one little interesting statistic I learned on this was if you Google search something and then you do the same search on ChatGPT, it takes 10 times more energy to do the ChatGPT search.
Yeah, so we just don't think that way. I don't think of that.
No, I don't either.
No. Wow, that is pretty crazy. So I like what you had to say, too, about, unfortunately, in so many instances, we're removing reliable forms of energy off of our energy board, so to speak, whether it's coal or natural gas or whatever for various reasons. So I know that you have visited and had a lot of cool experiences Can you kind of take us through some of the stops and what you learned at individual stops during this campaign?
Yeah, sure. So I visited 11 states, and the first stop was my state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is rich with natural gas and coal, and I went into a long wall coal mine 800 feet underground to see how they're mining coal. And, coal has its own story. We could do a whole podcast on coal.
And we have.
That actually you have. Yes. You had one of the guests from the mine that I visited, Excellent. The CEO of the company, on your podcast. I forgot about that. So we were in Core Natural Resources, has a mine there. But 60% of the coal that they produce there is exported out of the country, which was crazy to me to learn that. A lot of people have been fed misinformation that coal is not a viable form of energy. And it still is. It's very much in need. It's very part of how we produce electricity. It's very relevant. So it was really interesting to go down into the mine. And I think what surprised me the most was how technologically advanced the mining process is. Because you still see old pictures of miners. My grandfather was a coal miner, and you think they're down there with a pick and, physical labor, and everything was so automated. It was like an underground city. There was an underground rail system that took us to the long wall. The mines are computer operated. They have these awesome conveyor belt systems that move everything out of the mine that, remember, is 800 feet below the ground. So I really got to see how well we do coal. And I learned a lot of different types of coal. We have low sulfur coal, which makes it burn cleaner where I was in Pennsylvania. And they have even less sulfur content in Wyoming, where I got to see a huge surface coal mine in Wyoming. So coal was definitely in Ohio. We went to a strip mine that was coal. And then I went to Kentucky, and I got to actually tour an electric power generation plant that's powered by coal. That was a unique experience. We went to Louisiana and saw an inland barge oil rig. I was in Texas. I was in Montana. I was in Colorado. I was in Wyoming, Utah. I think I got them all.
Well, what kind of strikes me is all across America, there are so many states that are big energy producers, different types. I mean, we think of Pennsylvania and West Virginia and others and Wyoming really as coal, but a lot of them also, natural gas goes hand in hand with a lot of that. Then we got like the Texas and New Mexico's of the world.
Texas.
Yeah.
Well, everybody thinks about oil in Texas. There are windmills all over Texas. Oh, yeah. I was amazed at how much wind energy they have. We actually visited a Bitcoin mine that uses electricity from the wind. That's kind of extra from a substation. And they're also doing nuclear in Texas. So
yeah, well,
Texas does it all. Texas does everything big. We know that. Go big or go home.
They also have a regulatory environment and leadership that are open to innovation and not over-regulating different sources, because they realize that, they've seen the Texas Renaissance is often because they unleashed energy. They also dealt with their tort system, by the way, and they made taxes low and didn't over-regulate, and then they keep trying to innovate and people are moving there to do that. And but I look at, it's funny, you kind of put next to each other. Texas is the number one oil producer in the nation. New Mexico, surprisingly, is number two. Right next door, they share the Permian Basin. If anyone watches Landman, that's what we're talking about. But there's a story of two different states there, and it's a story of leadership. And it really does make such a huge difference at the state level. But then we're starting to see, obviously, at the federal level, a big change in leadership from the Biden administration, which was kind of clamping down and restricting, and I would say, throttling off a lot of our domestic energy production. Maybe tell us what you're hearing from people. Is there optimism or like the experience of folks that you're talking to with the Trump administration coming in and their approach to energy production? Oh,
there's a lot of optimism now. We had two administrations that outright declared war on fossil fuels and were closing and facilities that contribute reliable energy to our power grid. And I think a lot of people don't understand that there's two types of energy, right? There's intermittent power sources like wind and solar, which means when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, there's no energy.
So think unreliable
Right.
energy.
So it's great to supplement, though.
Yeah.
Like, it has its place. But we need reliable sources of energy like coal and natural gas and nuclear and those types of energy, because you can store them. I mean, when I was up in Wyoming, they have 200 plus years of coal. I mean, you can get it, you can store it, you can stockpile it, you can do the same thing with natural gas. So I'm digressing from your question, I'm sorry. But the optimism now is there, because there wasn't certainty, especially for coal. I really feel bad for the people that do coal, because they provide a lot of our lights and our power here. And they really faced a lot of attack. And when I went to the coal mine, one of the contacts that worked at the mine said, "I can't believe you guys are here showing this, because nobody does this." Because they've really gotten a bad rap, and they really do things well. But there's still uncertainty, though, and that's what we're trying to address with Americans for Prosperity federally, because our permitting system really is cumbersome and duplicitous, and what took a couple months 50 years ago takes years today. And you need permits for everything. You need permits for exploration, for construction, for infrastructure, for pipelines, for electrical lines, for green energy. You no matter what kind of energy you like, you need permits, and it impacts you. And every place that I went on the tour, I usually asked them, "What's your biggest obstacle?" And it was always something to do with permitting, whether it was had to do with water permits or air quality permits or the coal mine permits. What was really shocking was, since we're talking so much about coal, is I asked them how long it would take to get a permit to do a new mine. And in all 3 states, it was anywhere from 8 to 12 years.
Well, not
8
months,
to 12
years.
years. 8 to 12 years. So we have an urgency for extra energy in our country. But if someone wants to open up a new coal mine, it's going to take 8 to 12 years. Like, forget it.
Right.
And even in Kentucky, I asked them, what if they wanted to put up another power grid, another electric generation facility for their power grid? And he said, that would never happen. That would never happen. Like, since when has America ever said that's not going to happen, we can't do it? Like, that is not the spirit of America. We have a can-do spirit in this country. And that is the message that kind of came from the workers, was we want to do right by the American people. We are able and ready to do this, but the one thing that's in our way is the government.
Yeah. Well, when we were together in Montana, I talked to Chairman Bruce Westerman from Arkansas. He's the chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee, and he has the SPEED Act, the bill that would really try to address permitting reform comprehensively, that Americans for Prosperity is very supportive of and working hard to try to advocate for. And it was just so, first of all, he's just a delightful individual to talk to.
He is.
And he's
very knowledgeable, and he cares about the environment.
Yeah, I mean, that's his background. It's like forestry and environment. But what struck me, too, is in his understated way, he was just like, it just doesn't really make sense that it takes many years to get to open up, new energy sources, when it should take, a year or 9 months or something much more conducive to actually getting the energy out. But it's just we're still keeping the safeguards environmentally and all that to protect people. But I'm really glad to see that's moving forward. Hopefully that'll, maybe by the time this is out, that'll become law. But that's the type of approach we need to take to our economy in general. But it's so important right now, because, they might not want to ever open something in Kentucky, another generation facility, until the lights go out, until there's not enough energy to do all the great things that we want to do. When it becomes a constraining influence, I think it's really that's where it starts to change people's minds. And because it's crazy, we have the energy, we have the resources.
I don't want to be an alarmist, but there are places that are at risk of rolling blackouts and having to conserve power. Like, we're not that far away from that.
It's happened in California.
It's happening in Europe right now. I just read an article about that. They're really backtracking on some of their 100% green energy, because their prices have skyrocketed, and they're rationing energy in some countries in Europe, and they're starting to do exploration again for fossil fuels, because they need to get the pricing under control and they need to supply. Like, can you imagine if you had to turn off your heat for a couple hours a day because there wasn't enough.
Particularly if you live in like
energy.
Scandinavia or something. That'd
And
be
we
miserable.
live in America where we have coal, oil, natural gas in abundance.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. So we have to get a hold on. We have to get a hold of this, and we have to get a hold of this pretty quickly.
I mean, the good news is that we have the resources. The other good news is that the Trump administration is very focused on trying to enable that kind of us to extract that energy, create the great jobs that go with it. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Alaska. It's one of the states that I do work in. And there are projects on the board that are coming on next year, the year after, that the Trump administration has started moving forward on, that are so exciting, that will revolutionize like the production just out of that state, in which obviously that like their entire state financing is dependent upon that revenue.
Right.
And so but that's super exciting because we've seen there like the energy economies shrink there. And I mean, ConocoPhillips left there, a number of jobs, they've stagnated and they're not sure what direction they're going to go. If that energy economy kind of comes roaring back, it's still very active, but if it even grows more, I mean, it's only good for America and for that state and for the people who live in that state, whether the native folks, the folks who have lived there for just a little bit. But that's exciting, and that story is true in a lot of places. There's a lot of places where energy jobs are the best jobs around, and those communities really need those jobs.
Oh, that's a lot of America.
Yeah,
that was the big message in Louisiana. We went to this little marina in this small town, and the boat captain took us out to the oil rig and showed us all around. And, in our conversations, we spent probably 4 hours on a boat tour in the area. And he said, if this goes away, our whole community goes away. Everything. The marina, the restaurants, the gas stations. He said, this industry supports this entire town. And that's symbolic of other states, and other energy towns. It really provides really good sustaining jobs, and the people depend on it and the communities depend on it. So not only does, abundant energy help keeps costs down for you and me, it provides really good paying jobs. And it can help our economy because we can export a lot of it.
Yeah.
We can export LNG, we can export coal. So
well, did you have a favorite stop that
everybody
you made?
asks that, and I can't pick one. That would be so unfair.
It's like pick your favorite kid.
They all, yeah, exactly. But they all have their unique qualities that you like, right?
Well, you went to 11 stops, right?
Went to 11 stops.
I have 11
yeah.
kids. I get it.
One for each
I don't
kid.
pick one.
The ingenuity, the nuclear, we're learning about this new smaller nuclear molten salt reactor was what we were looking at. There's new nuclear technology that will be utilized in a much safer way than the old nuclear that people think of and that are scared of. And it's just amazing technology to look into that. I liked going to the mountain states because I'm not going to lie, like the views there were beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
I liked going to Louisiana because I like being in the water and going to New Orleans. But no, the people are amazing. I was on an actual drill rig in Utah. So we went to some natural gas and oil wells too. But in Utah, I got to literally stand on the rig and watch the drill go down through the rig into the ground and look at the drill bits and the parts of the equipment. People don't realize how expensive this stuff is to invest in these projects. There was a drill bit sitting there. It was $60,000 for one drill bit. Okay.
And those break.
They break. I think the operation was, I want to say it was, I don't want to say, I think it was like $1 million a day to get set up to actually do the drilling. So, this is something that people don't realize, the amount of money that these companies have to invest in their exploration, their production, their drilling processes. And then how do you get investors? Like some of these are private investors. How do you get investors to invest in a project if you think that next year, if a new administration comes in, he could cancel the whole thing, right? Or if they can't get a permit for 5 years. And these sites are costing millions, billions of dollars. So one of the big requests from the industry side was we need certainty.
Yeah.
Because we can't get investors and we can't increase our production and build our facilities if it's all going to get shut down again or we're not going to get the permits timely.
Yeah, that the idea of having reliability and certainty is something that we've heard just on the podcast, even going back to, prior to the One Big Beautiful Bill being passed and, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. We do shows on that. We talked to business owners and they were like, look, yeah, it's super important to us that the tax rate not go up. We don't need the biggest tax hike in American history. But even more so, they were like, we need the certainty so we can plan our business. And think about, if you're spending $1 million a day to drill a well that might not ever produce anything, by the way, but you're doing that, like, you need to be, from a financial standpoint, I'm sure your financiers also, want that certainty and want to have some reliability. And so it's not unreasonable to try to provide that. And I think the way that energy policy has ping-ponged between the administrations, Bush to Obama to Trump to Biden, back to Trump, obviously we believe that President Trump's current approach is the right one and it's the necessary one. But man, to be in that business, you're just kind of getting whipsawed. And not to mention all of the international pressures that happen too. I am pleased, though, that it does seem in the last few years, kind of the climate alarmism has receded some. Some people are kind of like looking at it askance, at least in America, and saying, I don't know that this is what we're doing to our energy supply is not worth it. And I think that that's helping to provide a bit of a resurgence, hopefully just in time. But I know, talking to some of the folks that you have referred over the podcast through, lead energy companies, like, man, that was a dark time. They were the bad guys and they're getting beat up.
Yeah, they do. They get beat up a lot. And I think you're right. I think the green energy myth, because that's really what it was. We dumped tons of subsidies into green energy. And you know how much more green energy we use than before? No more. It's still the same. It's still like 5%. I mean, the majority of our energy does not come from wind and solar or renewables. I wrote down some interesting examples of really bad regulations because I think when people hear you and I talk about we need permitting reform, some people think we just want to make things unsafe, and that's not it at all. I mean, going to these energy sites and meeting the people that work there, they all live in their communities. And we have extremely high standards for example, when with the coal mines, they restore the property when they're done. Same with the gas wells. The people that live in the communities work there. They're concerned about the environment. They're concerned about the clean water and fishing and hunting and whatever they do. Nobody wants to do anything to destroy our environment. So that's like a number one big misconception. But when you tell somebody, okay, one of the examples was when I was at Alstrom Fiber in Wisconsin. They have a big paper mill plant, and 50% of the expenses for their operation is energy. So that was the connection of why we went. And bringing manufacturing back to the United States is going to require a lot of energy. And we want to bring manufacturing back here. We want to bring jobs back here. So one of the examples that he gave me was 15 years ago, there was an Air Quality Act bill that passed that required them to put in a new air filtration, what do you call it, like a stack, right? And it cost them $10 million.
Wow.
And they didn't have a choice. They had to do it or they had to shut down, right? $10 million, 15 years ago, air permitting standard. So they built this new stack and then they tested the air quality after. And for $10 million, what do you think, how much should that have reduced emissions?
25%.
How about zero?
That's not great use of $10
How's
million.
that for a return on your investment of your $10 million that the government made you spend and it did absolutely nothing?
I mean, I wasn't a business major, but I would guess that's a pretty poor investment.
It's terrible. And this is what these people deal with. They don't have a choice. They don't have a choice, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because you know what? It shows that they already had good air quality. They already had good air quality. And that's the same thing with me in Pennsylvania. And we were in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. We reduced emissions in Pennsylvania without the need for government regulation. We've already done it. Well, look, the energy companies care about it because the consumer cares about it.
Right. I mean, I think people in America are way more aware than, last century ago of the environment and the impact that, that various things can have on it. But like, people care about the environment. People don't
Absolutely.
want a terrible environment. They want to enjoy it. They want to be safe.
Right.
Same with like worker safety.
I told you before, they were fishing off the oil rig in Louisiana on their breaks. They can fish off the rig because the rig attracts like barnacles and fish.
Yeah, that bitch is pretty cool.
And there was crabbing, crab traps everywhere. It was really neat to see how nature and these facilities all kind of work together.
Yeah.
We looked at some of the area in Wyoming where they had already restored the strip mining, and they use it for grazing the cattle.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, they need. I don't know if you've been there. Like, the land is pretty sparse. They need a lot of acreage for grazing for the animals there, and there were 3 bald eagle nests on the property too. So it's really nice to see how well America does it compared to other countries. Another area that we didn't talk about that needs addressed was the waterways. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of abuses in the NEPA regulations, and I heard a couple stories about that. I heard one story about the company. It was Utah. It's very dry up there,
right?
And these companies really try to support the communities that they're in. They have a lot of nonprofit dollars, and they do a lot of things for the communities for support. And they dug a ditch to supply water to a cattle farmer who needed water for his cattle. And then a couple years later, they were putting a permit in to put like a separate pad, and it was like really close to where this ditch was for the water for the cattle. And they were told, well, that's a waterway, a water source, and you can't do anything around that water source. And they're like, we dug that water source to give water to the guy's cattle. Like, we made that. So I thought that was a crazy story. Here you got a company try to do something nice for somebody, and then they get penalized because they made a waterway and now they can't touch it.
Yeah, it just seems like silly regulatory. That's just stories that you get from government all the time.
Yeah,
they really do.
No common sense.
So where are you? What do you think's next? We're gonna wrap up the year here, go on the holidays, and then starting on next year. What are your plans for next year? How are we going to keep pushing this message?
Well, I do think we're going to kick up the tour again in probably end of January or early February. We have a big event we're going to do in D.C. in February where we're going to highlight the tour so far and invite a lot of the representatives and people that were there and part of it, and then maybe invite some other states and show them what we can do in their state and continue to highlight this issue until we pass permitting reform, until we hopefully pass the Speed Act, the Permit Act, and whatever else we can do for permitting. And then we can move on to a couple other issues there's a lot of work to be done, David. We have to strengthen our power grid. We have to work on exports. We have to build critical infrastructure. So I think we'll be doing energy for quite a while until we get things rocking and rolling here.
Well, it's one of the great industries for America, and it's a growth area too. And I mean, it not only does it's not only an economic issue for us, and so we have strong communities, economics. It's also a national security issue. We need to be able to be energy independent, and we've made a lot of strides on that in the last number of decades. But even though the past administration tried to give that back, I'm excited where the Trump administration's been going and their continued leadership, and I'm glad that we're talking about this a lot because it's really important for people to know.
Is a wonderful Secretary of Energy.
Yeah, he really, really, really is. So where can people follow you if they want to kind of see your videos and follow you on social media?
Well, you can follow our website at prosperityisimpossible.com. Nice. We have a whole section of information there on the Road to Prosperity Tour and the bills that we're going to be promoting and the stops that we've made. And you can also follow us on Twitter at AFPHQ. You can follow me on Twitter, or you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook. You can find us on any of the socials.
Well, as a consumer of your social media, you guys, it's been fun watching you. I've seen more pictures of you in a hard hat and safety goggles.
That's
but
true.
You look great in it, and I'm glad you're out there with everybody and just seeing the whole team. I think it's been fun to see you guys go around the country and highlight these great stories. And like, from a visual standpoint too, but I mean, there's so many, it's just such a great American story. And I'm excited that you're telling it, and it's super fun. And I'm glad that AFP is able to do this too.
Nobody does energy better than America.
Amen. Well, thanks again. Appreciate it, Mary Beth. Yeah. Well, folks, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and follow us on social media like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.